States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This will move on to public comment. If anybody in the public have anything. Move on to item number 2, the consent agenda. Everyone's had a chance to look at that. Need a motion for that, please?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And then, next we have some correspondence. The first piece we have is Glenn Patterson's been appointed as our liaison from the Board of Finance. And then the second piece is the invite we sent out to the RTM, and it goes out to the Board of Finance as well, to invite them to our budget workshop. And that's it for correspondence. Item number 4 is superintendent's report.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off with a recap of our commissioner's visit. I want to thank Marcia Benvenuti and Craig Merriman for joining us that day. I'm really going to hand it off to our two principal tour guides here in just a moment, but it really was an outstanding day, both for our students and staff in the Waterford Public Schools. The commissioner was joined by the Connecticut AFT president, Jan Hockadell, and both of them toured about almost a dozen different aspects of starting at the high school and then driving over to Oswegatchie over about an hour and a half. So it was a jam-packed schedule. But one of the things that we wanted to be sure to do during the course of that visit was really tell a story of the Waterford Public Schools, really highlight the great teaching and learning that's going on, and highlight some of our priorities in recent years. So I think you'll see throughout the brief presentation by Andre and Joe that I think we accomplished that. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to Mr. Hauser to kind of talk about the high school aspect.
Thank you, Tom. I'll try to be brief. I tried to take an hour and a half tour, fit it into 45 minutes, and now I'll try to fit it into 5. Thank you, which would be easier with the clicker. So we had a number of people on the tour. It really did sort of snowball a good bit. We had Jason Adler, you can see in the picture there, also in our audience. He's the president of the WFCT and the Connecticut president of the WFCT who's coming, so it made sense. Then there's me, then Commissioner Cardonia. We had 3 students with us. The first one is Owen Seltzer, who was there covering this for the school newspaper. Next is Jan Hockadell, the Connecticut president for the AFT. Then Jalen Chappelle, one of our seniors who served as a student ambassador. And Lily Abramowitz, another student, she's a junior, also a reporter for the newspaper. And then, of course, Tom. And this is us in the main entrance, where we were also joined by Craig and Marcia and other Craig and Kathy. And I think we had about 13, possibly 14 people for the tour. And in some cases, couldn't quite fit in the classroom. Now, as Tom mentioned, we wanted to tell a story about what it is that we're doing right now. And a lot of what we've been trying to do is guarantee rigorous, meaningful work for all of our students. And in many cases, that means looking at ways to create more opportunities for school-to-career partnerships. So we started in our tech ed department, and this is our computer-aided drafting classroom, where we talked a little bit about both Electric Boat's SHIP internship program, where last year we set the record for the most students from one school they'd ever taken for their summer junior into senior year internship program. And we also talked about our work recently with the Eastern Workforce Investment Board to create a youth manufacturing pipeline that also ties in with Electric Boat and can give some of our technology education students who aren't planning to go to college after high school a direct line into employment with EB in skilled manufacturing jobs. And that was something that Commissioner Cardone was very interested in, spent a good bit of time asking questions about that. From there, we headed into the more academic areas of the building, starting with an English class. This is Fran Silvestri's sports literature class. This year, we've taken all of our 12th grade English classes, and we've split them up into a dozen different one-semester electives, creating more opportunities for student choice and student investment in their work, and also getting rid of all of our standard level classes in English 12. We're also scaling up from 9th grade, and next year it'll be 10th grade, and then after that 11th grade as well, where we won't have standard level courses anymore. We're just providing more support in the classroom and adjacent to the classroom for kids to make sure everybody's exposed to as rigorous an English curriculum as possible. That mirrors the success we've seen recently in math with a similar approach in algebra. We had to bring them into the art room because there was no art anywhere else in the building, because that night was also the opening for the Whalers and Lancers art show at the Hygienic Gallery in New London. And they got to see students working hands-on in our drawing and ceramics entry-level class. That's April Brown's class, by the way. She's a tremendous art teacher who we stole from our own elementary school. I think we might have stolen her from you, didn't we, Pat?
I'm so happy.
And she's been a great addition to our faculty the last several years. And then to see some more hands-on learning, we were in honors chemistry with Katie Pesco, who was a real up-and-comer in our science department. And we came in right as students were starting a lab. As a matter of fact, when we got there, one student from each of the lab groups was out in the hallway. We asked them what they were working on, and their answer was, we have no idea. They sent us out so we won't know what the instructions are, and we're going to have to problem solve through this activity. Which of course was fun for us to watch. All the kids were working at ground level, and we were standing over them as they were doing their lab. I'm sure they appreciated that.
One thing on honors chemistry, one of the talking points that Craig and I talked to the commissioner about has been the acceleration of our students at the high school accessing these college credit bearing courses. Something I talk about often during the budget population presentation. You know, in 4 years, we went from 281 college credit courses taken to 686. And that kind of acceleration of challenging all learners in this class was indicative of that.
And this class is actually a feeder for the college level class. After honors chemistry, which is primarily sophomores and juniors, we also have an ECE level chemistry where they get a UConn credit for the class. And that is, most of these kids will then, if they're interested in going into sciences in college, will end up tracking from honors chemistry into ECE chemistry as well the next year. Also taught by Katie Pesco. So she'll know exactly where they're ready to start from and pushes them right from there. And then we ended the high school portion of the tour in, and you don't actually see the teacher in this one, it's just students. Honors trigonometry and pre-calculus with Bill Bassett. Bill is one of our math teachers. He's also our math instructional coach. And we wanted to have, give them the opportunity to see one of our coaches teaching a lesson rather than coaching. Because what Bill does and what Tony Tessier, our literacy coach, does is, if there's an instructional practice that they really want to see more of in the classroom, in their department, they will first work on it in their own classroom, make sure they understand what works with it, what doesn't work with it, and then take that firsthand knowledge and apply that in their work with the other members of their department. And one thing that a number of the visitors pointed out, and Marcia, I think you were the first one to mention it, was Bill's use of wait time. There were no answers coming from the teacher, no matter what. He was very comfortable with that brief, almost uncomfortable silence that gets somebody to say, okay, I'll answer. And just pulling that information out of the kids as a master teacher was really nice to watch. Then we turned it over and they headed over to Oswegatchie, so I will turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Andre. Good evening, everybody. So this was obviously a very special day for us at Oswegatchie School. The commissioner and company were greeted by some student ambassadors from our 5th grade team of student council, Brody and Zoe, who then introduced our chorus, who provided a couple numbers. Commissioner said that was definitely one of the highlights of his visit at Oswegatchie. There were a couple of tears in the audience. It was really Schaudler put on a great performance at the drop of a hat. So we had the opportunity to illustrate how as a district we are building a pre-K through 5 continuum within our buildings, and I think we have to speak about later on, as we met separately outside of the classroom, how we consider a pre-K through 12 continuum here in Waterford. So obviously and chronologically, we started in Amy White's pre-K classroom, and the commissioner had questions about executive function and how we're building an environment that supports readiness. And Amy White provided some specific examples around the classroom, how the classroom itself is a teacher. He was able to see her facilitate questions. She was really a facilitator more than providing direct instruction. It was an open inquiry-based environment. That continued as we went into Ms. Sullivan's second grade classroom. Once again, building an environment for inquiry. We got to see Tammy present a number corner, which is a real discussion-based presentation of math content, where the children offer their perspectives, their different strategies on how they address math problems. Much more than just fluency and can you add these two numbers together. It's about having discourse.
In a very sophisticated way.
That was something else. There were some hot tickets in that classroom. Well done, Ms. Sullivan. And once again, an opportunity for discourse and inquiry for math. And second, we went to Reader's Workshop, Allie Gallus's classroom in 4th grade, where she was involved in some deep discussion in readers' conferences with her students, one-on-one conferences as students, other students read independently. And we really saw not only the instruction of literacy and comprehension in that classroom, but also integrating choice and focus on genre to continue to build that love for reading with our 4th graders. Then we took a step out of what we do in the classroom to what we do out of the classroom. And we had Jessica Fedor from kindergarten, Mallory Hannaford from 5th grade, and Kerry Edwards from 2nd grade, who is also our teaching assistant principal. And really the teachers took the reins here and were able to make the connections between our school growth plan, our data cycles, and coaching, and how they're all reciprocal of each other. At all 3 schools, we're using our PLCs to pursue data cycles, taking a look at how what we're doing in the classroom affects how the students perform. That sounds kind of simple, but there's so much work behind that, building data literacy, looking at both formative and summative assessments. And the big takeaway, and it was nice because the day before the commissioner came, our all grade levels were able to share out the recent work they just did with a math data cycle. And we were able to see through from pre-K to 5th grade a very organic through line of the student needs, the adult learning, and next steps we want to take. And they were able to articulate that to the commissioner. So it was a very celebratory day. We are very proud as a district to be able to show him what we do. And I think he also left with some new ideas, he said too, and it was a great opportunity to show off. And thank you for all your support that we can provide all the programming that we do. I think the commissioner left a happy man.
Agreed. You know, it was really, just to wrap up on the commissioner's visit, it really brought to life the work of the strategic plan over the last 4 years, school growth plans. It really brought those pieces of paper to life, and for somebody else to see that. There were a couple asks from the commissioner in terms of takeaways that we still owe them, guys. So one of them was he heard Andre talk a little bit about, I'm going to ask you in just a second to talk about your lesson study protocol, but Andre talked with the commissioner and the AFT Connecticut president about the work the high school PLCs are doing around analyzing each other's lesson plans. That was one piece, and I know there was another takeaway from Oswegatchie around, Joe covered it pretty well, around how we're using teachers, collaboratively with data cycles. Do you briefly want to talk about the lesson study protocol work at the high school?
This is something that we've been working on with our faculty this year. One of our school growth goals has to do with ensuring that our instruction really focuses on tier 1 instructional strategies and recognition of struggling students and intervention right in the classroom, right away in real time. And the best way to do that is to really look at the structure of your lesson plans. So we've been doing what we call lesson study protocols. This is something we worked on with Courtney Jacobs from the Great Schools Partnership. And what this process is a group of teachers will get together, 5 or 6 teachers, and one will present a lesson plan that they're planning to teach and walk you through all of the elements. What are the objectives of it? How is this linked to curriculum? What's the introductory activity? What new learning is going to happen? How will this be reinforced with students? How will you close? And everyone else is paying attention to the format of the lesson, but focusing on it from a lens of, we're asking our teachers to always focus on one of 2 questions. How can I increase opportunities for higher order thinking skills? Or how can I increase opportunities to identify and remediate for students who might be struggling? How do I get those tier 1 interventions into my lesson plan more thoroughly and more naturally? And the first couple of times we did this, teachers did report that they were nervous about it. Yeah, it's a little awkward showing all of your coworkers what you plan to do and asking them, how can I make it better? Everyone who's gone through it has said it was a very positive experience, and they feel that they've got a much better insight into focusing on student need in the lesson planning process and in the delivery of that lesson. So we've committed to be doing these in our PLCs on an ongoing basis over the course of the year.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments about the commissioner's visit? Great. Next was the team and I wanted to give the board an update on the strategic plan. We talked a little bit in September about what the work ahead for the year was, and we're about halfway through the year, which is scary, but we are. And thought it would be a prudent time to update you on the year-to-date work around the strategic plan. So Craig and I will be trading slides, and I think he's got the first couple.
Sure. So, while the vision of a graduate is required by NEASC and our strategic plan, it's a very important guidepost for the district. It serves as a means to shape unit design as well as assessing programs along the pre-K to 12 continuum. As such, the DAC committee has worked tirelessly to take the mission statement, the poster behind you here, the academic, civic, and social skills, and turn that into the vision of a graduate. Waterford High Admin then vetted this through the Career and Technical Advisory Board, PAC parents, and student advisory members. This is how the vision of a graduate document looks. There are 5 areas of transferable skills. They are communication, research and understanding, critical thinking, responsible citizenship, and self-direction.
So this is still draft format, and you're actually gonna get a whole presentation just on this grid later this spring, because we're still vetting it through our stakeholders, but we wanted to show you the makeup of it.
Next to each transferable skill, there's an I can statement, and that really, it captures our mission statement's academic, civic, and social skills. And next to that, there are 4 ways that each transferable skill, there are 4 ways that each transferable skill can be seen within the learning environment. And these are the performance indicators. Then we had a strategic plan item on incorporating higher order thinking skills into the vision of the graduate and into our curricular. So insurance of higher order thinking skills is within the vision of a graduate. Each performance indicator is using Bloom's higher order thinking vocabulary. Each performance indicator will have an associated rubric to measure the success within a unit taught. The DAC committee is in progress. We're about a third of the way through, completing and building a rubric for each of these performance indicators. Then, as curricular renewals occur, the vision of a graduate's transferable skills will be embedded into the curricular units and be assessed using this rubric design. these all sort of nest together, which is why I'm just sort of linking it. So the strategic plan asks to analyze our current rubric and see where gaps exist. So the DAC committee did an audit of all rubrics prior to the vision of a graduate work. This was used as a basis for what is out there and what we should be constructing moving forward. As stated in the previous slide, the rubric structure will be embedded into all curricular during the renewal process. So while it's an action step this year, it will take a few years to fully matriculate into all areas.
First off, and whether it was last budget process or throughout the course of these presentations around our data warehouse, one of the things that we recognized several years ago is that teachers and administrators and other staff needed quicker, more effective access to data. The budget for this year, so last year's budget process, budgeted for that data warehouse. Ed's team has worked tirelessly since July 1, when we have access to the funds for this year, to really do that data upload and get all the various databases in one place. At the October PD, there was a training, and now that training at each individual school, sometimes even down to the teacher level, individual teacher level, is in process. We're already hearing from our principals great feedback. We had an ad team meeting a week or two ago. Each one of the 5 of our principals shared anecdotal feedback, whether it was teachers or they themselves. I know we had a monthly principal meeting this week with Mr. Sachs over at Clark Lane, and obviously their work around student discipline, something that takes hours and hours, he was able to do with literally the click of a button.
3 clicks.
3 clicks.
Not one, three.
But would have been slogging through that manually on Excel and multiple data points and whatnot. So it's really proving dividends. Certainly, if any of our principals had something to share on the implementation of that data warehouse. It's a work in progress. It's nowhere near complete. It'll never be complete, as we've created an online Google Doc for teachers and administrators at the school level to submit ideas that, hey, I'd really love to see this mapped against this. Like, I'd love to see attendance mapped against these assessments, and is there a correlation? So that's ongoing. The company has been very, very responsive to our needs, and it's really, really going well. And we look forward to that being a separate presentation in the near future for you as well. This is me too. So along with that data theme around data warehouse is our continued focus to make that PLC time as effective as possible. I had a great precursor to anything that I would say by Mr. Macrino earlier tonight, talking about the work that our PLCs are doing across the district. That only gets enhanced with that timely, more effective access to data. I know, for example, Mr. Discordia, his staff is doing a lot of work around analysis of student work. You're hearing lesson study protocols, really beefing up and making sure those PLCs are focusing on the work that we should be focusing on, and teachers are really responding to that.
Tom, excuse me, Tom, are we incorporating the rubrics now, or are we waiting into those lesson plan mentoring, the period reviews kind of things? Are we starting that now?
Yeah, so
Craig on that.
yeah, February 5th is our next STAT meeting, where we hope to accomplish finishing every performance indicator with a 4-point rubric. Then it's, I believe, an intent for the March PD Day to roll that out with the help of great school partnerships at the secondary levels, meaning Clark Lane and the high school. I intend to have Courtney Jacobs here in June to work with our 6 curricular teams that are in action, which are from K to 12, so that those 6 curricular teams will then next year look at the units that they've written, make any tweaks, and then look at the assessments with this rubric in play. So that'll be the formal way, but the great thing is, usually when you let teachers in Waterford know this is on the horizon, they are quick to try to adopt it themselves. So it wouldn't surprise me when There's an overview at the faculty meetings that this takes off quicker.
I just worry that the rubrics are only limited to the unit development and not the individual lesson development.
Yeah, so let me clarify that. So it's the rubric design would be taking the content in the unit of study or lesson, so what goals you hope to accomplish, as well as what relevant transferable skill is being taught within that content. The transferable skills, we're developing the rubric for district-wide because we want to look at that at a pre-K to 12 level. The content, we want to have the same rubric structure with the I can statements and a 4-point rubric, but that will be developed at the teacher level.
But the whole concept of rubric development could easily fit into a regular lesson, a daily lesson.
It absolutely could.
And I would hope that you would, I understand that you need it in the unit area too, but to bring it back down and get people used to the idea that, so that the kids know, okay, we're doing this assignment, this is what I expect of this assignment, this is worth 10 points, this is worth 20 points, this is worth 30 points, but, you know, it doesn't have to be a unit rubric, it can be rubric should, in my opinion, be
So you're
incorporated all along.
100% accurate. As a district, we really only will bring down the curriculum to the unit level because we never want to stifle the art of teaching with the daily lessons. So with that being said, once we model it to teachers at the unit level, I have high belief that they will implement it at the lesson level, but as a district, I don't believe that we should ever be mandating every single lesson a teacher is teaching.
Right, I agree with you.
And I think you're talking specifically around the transferable skills rubric. Our teachers use rubrics every day at the lesson level.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I was gonna
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Aren't they-
I mean, we're talking
Which is why we
specifically
did an
around-
audit, and there's a wide
Right.
use of rubrics and
Elementary
different
teachers
structures.
over there nodding, so, I mean, we have writing
And even high
rubrics.
school should be
Right.
using that for
Exactly.
grading
This
purposes as well.
particular topic we're discussing today is really around that vision of the graduate transferable skills rubric down to unit
Yes.
level. We use rubrics every day at the lesson level. Very, yes, point well taken. Drafted district dashboard, again, this is something that we started last year, remains ongoing, and this is really a function of the DAT team. And really what that's talking about is we know we have existing metrics. We have SBAC, we have SATs, we have the Next Gen Accountability Index around chronic absenteeism. But what are those other ways that we're accurately measuring our mission, and the various components of our mission? And the questions that we're asking ourselves as a DAT, District Analysis and Action Team, District Data Team, and as a district is, what are those measures beyond the ones that already exist are important to us? Are we concerned with the amount of freshmen in college that graduate from Waterford High School that are enrolled in remedial courses? Is that an important metric for us? I'm speaking only for myself. That is important to me. These are the questions we're asking as a district. Do we care if kids, our students 5 years after high school are either employed, post-grad program, or unemployed? Is that an important? And we're really taking an open mind. We'll worry how to get that data later on. Let's not get bogged down in the barriers to this. Do we care how many students in our school are involved in something after school or extracurricular? Is that important to us? So what are those other things that we should be concerned with measuring our mission? Are we truly being successful beyond the state mandated and the ones that we all know? So we've been examining dashboards from around the country, both from big cities like Atlanta public schools, all the way to what is, say, Madison, Connecticut doing. So we're examining dashboards from around the country and asking ourselves questions. How are we measuring our mission beyond the metrics that we already have? So that is, continues to be in process.
And then we have a whole strategic section on policies. So as you know, we were well into the policy comprehensive review of the entire manual. While it's always been the policy committee's focus to review and revise policies, this has primarily been focused on statutorily required changes with a few additional policies reviewed each year. As a result of this strategic plan initiative, all policies have been reviewed, many policies have been deleted, and the series adoption process is nearly completed. The final outcome will be that the policy manual has what is required by law and those unique necessary policies for our community.
And then really the last piece of the strategic plan work for the year will be between now and June, is really assessing the strategic plan. It was developed about 3 years ago. Some people at this table were on it too, as I know. Pat, I remember, as Principal and Marcia, I think Greg was part of that, and others. So we built steps out 3 years, so this is really the last year of the formal steps that we built. So what we're gonna be doing is really taking stock. Where are we 3 years from when we created it? And the beauty of it is we had built indicators within the strategic plan that allow
Right
us to do that,
Yeah.
so.
And so, the strategic plan was built on what's our present state, so kind of the baseline, and then, you know, where do we hope to be? So the accomplished state, and then kind of indicators along the way, what would a beginning and progressing. So, one of the action items for the DAT committee this thing is going to be, as Tom said, to look at each one of those elements and see where we are. Are we past the present state, and if so, at what level? Which will then help us to determine the next course of action. Is it a completely different strategic plan, or is it really going deeper into the work that we've charted to really have it solidify within the district? And that will be the next step once we have that.
So we have these progressions for each one of the various indicators in the plan. This just happens to be one around goals and alignment. But we have those for the 5 different buckets of the strategic plan. So it's going to be an exhaustive exercise because Craig and I were discussing it this week. It's not going to be one of these, well, I feel we're progressing. It's going to be, what's the evidence that we're at that level? Really an evidence-based approach and saying, okay, if we're not at the accomplished level, what are those next steps that we need to develop as a district to get there? So it's exciting, you know. In some places, strategic plans become a nice shiny document that you post on your website and it looks great, but is it impacting at the classroom level? I'm really pleased with the work that steering committee of 22 or 23 people did 3 years ago to really come to fruition. It's really been a nice roadmap. Happy to answer any questions about strategic plan direction. All right, a couple other items under other. I want to thank Oscar Gacci for the artwork in the board conference room and out in the hall. It's always a pleasure. Just a quick update on our K-8 partnership recruitment. I think I mentioned last month Mr. Hauser had been making the Eastern Connecticut tour. The lottery closed a week or 2 ago, and specifically from Norwich, you might recall we have 3 partner districts, Basel, Franklin, and Norwich. We have 11 applications from Norwich for 10 seats. If Basel and Franklin don't fill their seats, I'll be reaching out to the Norwich superintendent to see if they want to take advantage of any of those other seats. So pleased with the response there. Our pre-K lottery is open now from now until February 14th, and response continues to be high. The program really has a wonderful reputation. Next week on Thursday, Ajit Kapalakrishnan, who is the Chief Performance Officer for the state of Connecticut, and members of his staff from the Connecticut State Department of Ed Performance Staff Office will be visiting Clark Lane for the entire day. When Jim reached out to me and he had been communicating with them, I says, Jim, they're not coming for the whole day. They're gonna come for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And Jim goes, no, they wanna be here the entire day. You wanna talk a little bit about the setup for the day?
So they'll be visiting every teacher's classroom for about 20 minutes or so. They'll
And this is specifically math.
math,
Yeah.
correct. And they'll be debriefing with all the teachers. We're gonna have a working lunch together, and then at the end of the day, they'll attend our PLC meeting. Ajit's very curious about the growth that we showed last year, the installation of the new illustrated math program, how we've implemented a very balanced inquiry model in the classroom. So I think he's just super curious what the story behind the numbers. I met him twice now, once when we presented up at one of the conferences and once at one of my principal roundtable meetings. Super guy to work with, really, really smart, and we're just excited to have him.
They're the keeper, he's the keeper of the ed site, so that's him, and he presented at the CAVE workshop to all the school board representatives. So when you look at the ed site, he's the one that
Correct.
puts all that data in, and then analyzes the data. And the day we were there at the workshop, so he's a phenomenal guy.
He really is.
He's the keeper of the rating of the schools that everyone looks to, so that's a big deal.
That is all correct. So we look really forward to, and the setup of the day, as Jim said, is, so they'll see, he and his staff will see grade 6 teachers, then they'll debrief with the grade 6 teachers, and then move on to 7th and 8th. So really should be a fruitful day, and we look forward to reporting back at the February board.
Absolutely.
Last week, Kathy Vallone and myself met with the executive director and some staff from the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut. That was a result of a meeting that was held at the library earlier this fall. And they initiated partnering with us. They do a lot of work with London Public Schools around engaging community partners and nonprofits to address student and family needs. And at that library convention, I think it was called, I shared some statistics with the group around the changing needs of Waterford over really the last probably 5 to 10 years, and they were really intrigued because it's not necessarily in alignment with what the perception is out there. People don't realize things like that. Our EL population has more than doubled in the last 5 years. That 1 in 5 of our students is special education. 1 out of 3 is on free and reduced lunch. So those are statistics that were eye-opening to them, and they work across 40 towns in Eastern Connecticut. So Kathy and I met with them. Really the first step in exploring a possible partnership is to do something what's called asset mapping. And we talked a little bit about this at Ad Team a week or 2 ago, and that's really who are our community partners. And that can be a parent who comes in and works with 5 kids on some pre-engineering program. That could be a nonprofit that comes in and partners with us. It could be a business that we partner with, a mentor. It could be the Waterford Police Department. So who are all those partners? What are they doing with us? How many students are they servicing? How do those students get picked for these opportunities? And what needs are we trying to address? And then we're gonna really, with them, analyze that data and see, are there ways that they can help us fill in the gaps for those students and families that we've not yet reached in an effective manner? So, Kathy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I think they're just looking for a partnership to help us in any way that we see an area of need. They were really open to making it work just for our district because they see every district has different needs. So I think we were looking at gathering data at this point.
It's exciting.
And then reaching out.
Exactly, it's that data.
Are they paying for that gathering of data and the asset mapping?
So,
Curious, because it's an expensive process.
so we are going to do an internal process for that, meaning the Waterford Public Schools, they've got some resources they've used other places that they're giving us access to and examples. And then they've offered to really help us do the analysis piece.
I'm familiar with the process. I actually was part of it for New London. So I was just wondering, how they approached you and if that's the cost to you. So,
So
okay, but it looks like you're.
we're gonna see where it goes and ends up. The the intriguing thing for us and the possible excitement around this is, a lot of the competitive grants to address student need is based on town wealth ranking and things like that. We're the 33rd wealthiest town in Connecticut, so we don't qualify for a whole lot of grants, and that's, we all know, Millstone is a large portion of our tax base, which skews or gives false impressions about the needs of the community. So we don't qualify for a lot of those competitive grants. More needy communities or less fortunate communities are. They have grant power and access that we don't have, being a community foundation, and a large one. So that's exciting that there are perhaps monies and opportunities and resources that we don't yet have access to that we could potentially access through them. So we'll certainly keep you posted as that process develops.
In terms of grants, I will tell you there is a very large grant that you all apply for now. It's $325,000 for 5 years. It's due March 15th, I think. Every town in the state is can apply for it. It's a federal grant. You can get more information about it, but I do know some of your partner towns are applying for it, but because you have some social emotional data and you have some good data, if it's something that you have a grant writer, it might be worth trying for. Other communities are trying for it at this point, throw it out there.
Great, excellent. We do not have a grant writer. But there are people you can work with that if you get the grant, they get paid and those sorts of things, so.
Yeah.
But yes, send some info along on that, that'd be great. You hear us talk, we invest heavily in technology in this district and in this town for our schools. Part of that is maintaining strong staff certification. We just held another Google certification training for, I don't want to say teachers, because there were non-teachers there as well, which is really exciting. As you know, we operate in a Google environment for our students and staff. Craig, do you want to just briefly talk a little bit about what that Google training was,
Sure.
maybe how it was different, and who was there, I think is important, not by name.
Yeah, so this is the third year we've done what they call Google Level 1 certification. So it's awareness of the Google environment, the Google Drive, Google Docs, they call them Sheets instead of Excel, how to use Google Earth to actually do some nice earth science with actually pinpointing things and then seeing the layers below. So it's been the goal, and because our teachers, primarily at the secondary level, also use Google Classroom, it's been our goal to try to get as many people as possible through this Level 1 cert. I will say right now we have 55% of the teachers that have gone through it. The first 2 years really was teachers only, as we've offered a couple sessions a year. For the past several years we've been able to bring in secretarial support staff from building level as well as central office. There's even been interested paras if it's relevant to their work, so we're doing that. And then for the first time we've offered the Google Level 2 cert to 20, this focus group was teachers that really would even go deeper into the work. I've taken the Google Level 1 training myself. It's a very quick 7-hour day. It's one of those things where you might be exposed to about 50 topics, and maybe a dozen things resonate with you that you might then use, and the rest sort of go into the ether. So it's one of those, like, you could take it again and probably learn more because you're comfortable with a certain level. So it's our it will be codified in the tech plan that you'll eventually see as the Technology Planning Committee is working on that, about what should be an assured experience for all, and Google training is one of those.
thanks for the recap. We're partnering with the Waterford Police Department on providing some updated safety training around threat assessment for central office and building administrators, as well as Waterford PD officers, so it's always in the forefront of our mind. Speaking of mind, Waterford High and East Lyme High School, both for students and parents, are bringing in a youth mental health and suicide prevention guest speaker, Jordan Burnham from Minding Your Mind. The high school will hear from Jordan on the morning of January 29th, and there's a parent event co-hosted at East Lyme High School Auditorium on the 28th at 6:30, and I would really encourage people to get to that. Mr. Newton, the East Lyme superintendent, and myself heard Jordan speak this past fall, and it was an extremely powerful and important and always timely topic around youth mental health. So look forward to that. Softball field project update. It's always a topic people want to know about. We got word this afternoon from the first selectman that contracts have been finalized with vendors and they plan to break ground on Monday. And Jay Miner, our director of buildings and grounds, will be serving as what's called the owner's representative, basically keeping tabs of the project and making sure the contractors are going to do what they agreed to do, and if not, he's going to tell somebody. As you know, Jay was integral to building the 5 schools. So, predating his time here, worked in the private construction industry. So we're in good hands, right, Jay?
Hope so.
Excellent. And lastly is around budget development. Obviously, we're in the final hours of finalizing that, and budget books will be distributed to all of you on Monday to your home. We look forward to budget workshops on February 6th and 13th, with final action on February 27th. There'll be copies available in the superintendent's office starting Monday for members of the public and other elected officials. And as always, you don't need to wait until the budget workshop to ask questions. Some of these require research and whatnot, so feel free at any point to reach out, and we're happy to answer any question at that time or in preparation for the workshop. If there's any questions, happy to answer. If not, that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Tom. Next we have committee reports. Since there really are no committees until a little later in the meeting, not much to report there. Although just a note on maybe on some of your printed agendas, you see the softball committee is still there. That doesn't exist. That's gone.
Well, but the retirement commission did meet, so I.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So, the retirement commission met, and we had all new people there. We elected a chair, who was Sue Driscoll, and then we went through the packet, and most of us didn't understand much of what it said. So we decided that we would have Wells Fargo come and Bill Sheehan come and give us a little tutorial on what we need to understand to do our jobs effectively. And also, the one thing we did understand was the actuary had suggested that $600,000 be added to the amount that we set aside, and they did not do that, so it was not covered. So there is a shortfall of $600,000. Now, how that impacts us, I'm not sure, but after the tutorial, I hope to be able to report better. That's all.
And then I had something for Atlantic Broadband. We had some discussion about just things were happening at the state level, and one of those things was a grant, and we applied for that grant, the PEC-PISA grant. It was a grant that was there and it went away and then it came back again. It's basically a pot of $7 million that's available to towns, to schools or towns, $3.5 million for each to use for their infrastructure. I think it's $150,000 max.
Yes.
Okay. But we're taking advantage of it. I think East Lyme is as well, so that's gonna be good. I think we probably should be able to get that because there's nobody really applying for it.
Yeah, Ed Crane really took lead on that for us. It was forwarded. That's why these liaison reports are great, because Craig Merriman brought that back to the district. Ed Crane jumped on it, and it would, our application is in the neighborhood of $60,000 to upgrade some network infrastructure. So hopefully we stand a good chance.
I think so. So I think, we don't have any liaisons here, so that, wrap that up. New business tuition rates.
Sure. By contract with our 3 partner districts, we have to inform them by February 1st of the tuition rate for students attending Waterford High for next year. That way they can plan their budget accurately. So the motion tonight is to approve that recommended rate for the 19-20 school year.
Would you like to
Motion,
entertain a
please.
motion?
Yes.
I'd like to move that the Waterford Board of Education approves and adopts a tuition rate of $12,230 for K-8 partnerships for the 2020-21 school year as proposed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous. And everyone's got a copy of what we came up with for the committee assignments. And just a note on these committees, these can be changed if things aren't working out for you. Just want to thank Greg for stepping up for the finance committee. We had a
Thank you,
spot
Greg.
there, so thank you. So we will need a motion for that.
So moved, that we approve the committee's nominees as recommended by the draft.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Then, we are gonna need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved, or
Second.
We have to.
we have to
actually-
read it.
We have to state the reason if we are invited by.
They did the tuition rate.
Recommend that the Waterford Board of Education moves to executive session at 6:53 PM and invites Mr. Giard for the purpose of discussion concerning mid-year performance and evaluation of a